In 1933, Adolf Hitler inherited a country of 65 million people, where church attendance still structured the week. In cities like Cologne and Hamburg, Sunday services filled stone cathedrals built centuries earlier. Crosses hung in classrooms. Bibles sat in army barracks. Hitler did not storm those churches on day one. Instead, he began asking a quieter question. What if loyalty to God could be redirected toward loyalty to the state? Within months of taking power, in January 1933, Nazi rallies began to look less like political meetings and more like liturgical events. Torchlight processions moved through Nuremberg at night. Swastika banners draped buildings like sacred cloth. The goal wasn't just obedience, it was devotion. Germany in the 1930s was overwhelmingly Christian. Roughly 2/3 Protestant, 1/3 Catholic. Priests baptized newborns in village churches from Bavaria to Prussia. If Hitler had declared Christianity illegal in 1933, he would have alienated millions overnight. So the strategy unfolded in stages. The Nazi Party program of 1920 had already included the phrase, positive Christianity. It sounded harmless, almost familiar. But it quietly rejected the Old Testament and emphasized racial purity over universal compassion. This was step one. Redefine Christianity without abolishing it. By speaking about providence in speeches and appearing beside church leaders in public ceremonies, Hitler bought time. Behind closed doors, party ideologues drafted plans for something much bigger than reform. Every religion relies on ritual moments: birth, coming of age, marriage, death. The Nazis began systematically replacing each one. Children at age 10 entered the Hitler Youth. Instead of catechism classes, they learned racial theory and military drills. They raised their right arms and swore personal loyalty to Hitler in oath ceremonies attended by uniformed leaders. Baptisms were replaced with naming ceremonies, celebrating Aryan ancestry. Weddings were conducted before swastika banners, sometimes with SS officers presiding. Even funerals changed. Coffins were draped in red flags with black swastikas. Party members stood in rigid formation as songs like the Horst Wessel anthem echoed through public squares. These were not cosmetic changes. They targeted the exact emotional pressure points where religion traditionally binds community. Ritual alone is not enough. A religion needs a story about the world. Nazi thinkers such as Alfred Rosenberg pushed a sweeping racial myth in his 1930 book, The Myth of the 20th Century, which sold over 1 million copies. It described history as a biological struggle between Nordic blood and corrupting forces. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, transformed Wewelsburg Castle into a symbolic center. A circular chamber with 12 stone columns was designed for elite SS ceremonies. Instead of saints, the movement elevated martyrs. Horst Wessel, killed in 1930, became a sacred symbol. His funeral was choreographed with flags, uniforms, and music, in deliberate imitation of Christian pageantry. By the late 1930s, the regime had built myth, sacred space, and martyrdom. It now had the skeleton of a new faith. In 1937, resistance sharpened. Pope Pius XI issued the encyclical Mit brennender Sorge, secretly printed and read aloud in German churches. It directly condemned Nazi racial ideology. The regime responded with arrests. Clergy were investigated, fined, and in some cases sent to Dachau concentration camp. Youth groups connected to churches were absorbed into the Hitler Youth. This marked a shift. The earlier strategy of gradual reshaping began turning into sidelining and pressure.
Hitler postponed a total break with Christianity, reportedly saying the final reckoning would come after victory in war. The new religion was not yet ready to stand alone. It still needed the old one weakened first. Despite the machinery of the state, the project never achieved total replacement. Christmas services continued through the war years, even under blackout skies in 1943. Soldiers carried small Bibles in their packs on the Eastern Front. Inside the Nazi leadership, there was no unified theology. Himmler favored Germanic pagan imagery. Rosenberg leaned toward racial mysticism. Hitler focused primarily on loyalty and power, rather than doctrinal consistency. Without a single coherent creed, the emerging religion remained fragmented. It functioned through spectacle and authority, rather than shared spiritual conviction. By 1945, as Allied forces entered Berlin and Munich, churches still stood, The Thousand-Year Reich had lasted 12 years. The attempt itself reveals something more important than its failure. The Nazi regime understood that controlling laws is easier than controlling conscience. But controlling conscience makes laws unnecessary. So they engineered symbols, redesigned life cycle ceremonies, built sacred architecture, wrote mythic histories, and elevated a political leader into a near-messianic figure. They tried to replace a cross carried for 2,000 years with a hooked symbol barely 2 decades old in German politics. They attempted to transform race into sacred destiny and obedience into moral virtue. The war destroyed their state in 1945, bombed cities and liberated camps, exposed the ideology's brutality. But the blueprint remains instructive. Totalitarian movements do not merely seek votes or territory. They seek conversion. Because when politics becomes a faith, disagreement becomes heresy, and power no longer needs to justify itself.